Beep, 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 beep. Welcome to the court of the Edijester, everybody. How are you doing? How you doing? How you doing? I've now finished my teaching time this month and moving on towards the end of one more to go on Saturday. And it's been great to see the Warrior teachers. They're doing great work. And yeah, people at different levels, people at different places in the programme. It's really interesting now. We've got lots of work going on in the background as well on schools, for example, which we'll be taking a special interest in. It's a mess, this whole post-cast. This seems to be a mess. From our perspective, it has given us a sort of level. That's it. This is where we are. This is what happened. Now go for it. We've got to get this out of the public square. We've got to get it out of our culture. But it's absolutely unbelievable that they're still coming up with their nonsense. They really are still coming up with their nonsense. And there's an article here from Daniel Sanderson in the Telegraph, the Torygraph, which is about BBC Scotland. Now, despite Cass, Scotland's still fanning about. Did you see Umsa Useless saying, they said to him, what are you going to do about the Cass review? Well, as Stonewall said, I couldn't believe it. I absolutely couldn't believe it. First thing that came out of his mouth, as Stonewall says, these people. Who's at his dinner table on a bloody Friday? There's something not right here. So BBC Scotland accused of pandering to trans activists in Cass review coverage. Campaign Group for Women in Scotland has made a formal complaint to the broadcaster for allowing unfounded claims about puberty blockers. Now, so for Women in Scotland have done phenomenal work in this area. You'll be aware of them. Marion and the crew taken the Scottish Government to court. There's been various things going on. They don't back down. They're very strong women, and they continue to be a major force in the movement today. So I'm very pleased to see that they've made this complaint against the BBC, who, quite frankly, I used to love, but I think has to go. I just think it has to go. I'm sorry, it's done. The rot seems to be so across the board that there's no way that they have of moving forward other than to fold. But I'll be glad to hear from you what you think about that, whether you feel they should fold. But let's have a look and see what exactly BBC Scotland have been up to. The BBC has been accused of allowing trans activists to peddle propaganda in its Scottish coverage of the landmark Cass review into child gender services. The Campaign Group for Women in Scotland has made a formal complaint to the broadcaster, accusing it of a lack of balance and allowing partisan commentators to make unfounded claims unchallenged about puberty blockers. Right, so, while south of the border, the BBC has covered the Cass review in depth. The day after the report was published, BBC Scotland chose instead to focus on an NHS England decision about migraine tablets. Already available in Scotland on its flagship morning radio phone-in. Meanwhile, on the day that the report was released, it convened a panel made up exclusively of critics of the Cass review on its nightly news programme, The Nine. What are they doing? This is BBC Scotland actively working to undermine the work of Hilary Cass, who has spent 4 years, and not a small amount, of her professional ability on producing one of the greatest reports I've ever read in my life. It is so brilliantly done. It is an absolute masterclass for anybody who is ever going to be in that situation of having to write one. Admittedly, it's 400 pages. It's not really, but that's only 100 per year. It's not, this cannot be what BBC Scotland are doing, but it is. So, and then they get this bloke on who's an absolute pain in the rear called Ellie Gomersall. Ellie Gomersall. A transgender a woman, it's not a woman, it's a bloke, right? Ellie Gomersall, a bloke, an activist, was invited to react to the Cass review alongside Dr. Aidan Kelly, who runs a private gender clinic. These are the people that are why are they interviewing the people that are causing the problem? Just ignore them. We're going to send them to Coventry. That way nobody, don't talk to them, don't engage with them, don't have dinner with them. We just shame them. Shame them. Get your hair cut, Gomersall, you larping bloke. And it's got here, Miss Gomersall. Really, the Telegraph? Come on, stop. Just say Gomersall. Gomersall also criticised the Cass review on BBC Scotland's Drive Time radio show that day and claimed, unchallenged by the host, that the effects of puberty blockers were perfectly reversible. These people are not going to stop until you stop them. These people are not going to stop talking bollocks until you, BBC Scotland, stop having them on to talk cobblers and nonsense. Do better. What the hell is wrong with these people? Absolutely insane. The Cass review, however, found that there was no compelling evidence about long-term impacts and could not rule out fears they can damage cognitive and psychological development and fertility, and studies have shown they do harm bone development. So this Gomersall bloke is lying. What a surprise. He's lying about what he is and he's lying about this. It's almost like liars are going to lie. The Telegraph understands that the Scottish Tories, who are leading calls for a ban on puberty blockers north of the border, have been invited onto BBC Scotland to discuss the report only once since its release. They didn't want to hear it. Unbelievable. The For Women Scotland complaint to BBC Scotland's Gary Smith, head of news and current affairs, accused the broadcaster of a dearth of Scottish coverage over the cast review. It said where it had been featured, appalling editorial decisions had been made, resulting in frequently misleading coverage, which was little short of propaganda. Naturally, the cast review did not address the provision of services in the Scottish NHS, but even a cursory investigation should reveal that the situation in Scotland is, if anything, worse, the complainant said. So this is what For Women Scotland are saying. They're absolutely determined to ignore it. And they've even said they're going to start their own. No, we're going to do our own. So you're going to spend another 4 years to find out the same thing, are you? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Despite the troubling findings of the report, affirmation-only care and dangerous experimental drugs continue to be the only show in town in Scotland, they're still messing with gay and lesbian kids, you bastards. Just stop, okay? A public service broadcaster should surely have been asking the tough questions of Minister and Health Service, which continues to allow this discredited and damaging approach. So Scotland's not safe for gay and lesbians. It's not safe. That's because the LGBT is unsafe for gays and lesbians. It's now a hard left political movement, and it needs to be stopped. While we should give credit to Drive Time for attempting to cover the issue at all, we were horrified that they gave airtime over to the unqualified, non-medical activist Mr. Edijester, who outright lied about studies being ignored in the cash report and was permitted to make wholly unevidenced claims about puberty blockers, regret rates and best medical practice. While the cash review was commissioned by NHS England, the Scottish Government is facing calls to adopt its findings, with concerns raised over practice at the Sandyford Clinic in Glasgow. Now, the Sandyford Clinic is Scotland's Stonewall, right? Another bunch of loons that have managed to get themselves, get their tick like head into the butt of Scottish culture, right? So that's another bunch of loons, right? That's the Scotland's Gender Clinic for Children. Shouldn't exist. Humza Useless, the First Minister, was asked about the report in an interview with BBC Scotland's Good Morning Scotland programme on Tuesday, leading to the BBC publishing only its second online news article on Scottish implications of the review. The issue did not feature on the Sunday show, which claims to cover the stories that matter to Scotland, including in its review of Scottish Sunday newspapers, where there was widespread cash coverage. In this interview, Yusuf reiterated the position that the cash report would be reviewed in Scotland, but ruled out calls to close the Sandyford, claiming it offered exceptional healthcare. Holy shit. They ain't going to stop till we stop them. I keep saying it, but it's true. I can't read anymore. That's what's happening in Scotland. It's probably something we need to pay attention to, because we should be supporting people in Scotland now to ensure that we eradicate this. Now, the next thing, of course, is education. There's moves afoot to get that started, but I'm already of the opinion that any teacher that supports the LGBT is now hostile to gays and lesbians. That's the only way you can see it, right? There are gays, there are lesbians, there are bisexual people. That's it. Everybody else I don't give a toss about. There's no LGBT. That is, LGBT is a political cult. It's a cult, and I think that's the best way that we can treat it. I'll see you later, though, and you'll let me know, as you always do, in the old comments. Come be a warrior teacher. I'll see you later. Bye.